Representing the business of boxing, ladies and gentlemen, let's hear it for Mr. Marty!
Thank you. You're far too kind. Thank you very much. So let's unpack a few things that you said.
Okay.
You said that Blue Blood said, I guess on his live, that he made the call to Bozy because he was instructed to make that call, to try to materialize the fight between Boots and Crawford, correct?
Yeah, because that's the fight BLK Prime wanted to launch their app on, was the Boots versus Crawford fight.
Right. Okay, now I have a question.
Okay.
You might have the answer because I haven't heard Blue Blood say this. He may have said this. Can you tell us, when did he call Bozy? What month was that he called Bozy?
And if I recall, he didn't. He said this. He said, "I can't tell you the exact month, but this is what I can tell you." Okay. This is what the man said. He said, "The first person I called when we were discussing of launching an app for boxing, the first person I spoke of was Jaron Ennis, and he was the first person I called." So that would have.
So basically, what you're saying, we're saying the same thing. At this point, we know that Blue Blood called Bozy. That's a fact. We all know that to be true. But what it is that no one can clarify exactly when he called Bozy. But yet, Bozy himself said that Blue Blood called him. And I'm not saying that he said that now. See, when I say that Bozy said that, and I know Bozy did say that now, but see, I'm going back in January of this year when Blue Blood himself came out. I don't know if you know this or not, AC, but Blue Blood himself came out in January, and he's the one that told everybody in a published video that he made contact with Bozy. This is before Bozy did an interview about it publicly. This is before anybody even knew that Bozy was contacted, or they were even trying to work a deal out with Boots or anything. And when I say they, I mean BLK Prime.
Yes.
Quote unquote, let the cat out the bag was the words that Blue Blood said in the published video in January. He's the one that came out and said that I called Bozy. So he called Bozy in January. Now, the second thing I want to point out is something that you also said. You said that Cameron Duncan is the manager of Boots, and he was the former manager of Crawford, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, now that is a fact. Now, my question, which is what I said in the published content that you commented on last week, is if Blue Blood Sports TV was so adamant, as he's been portraying, that he wanted this fight to happen by making an appeal to Desmond and BLK Prime for Boots to fight Crawford, then why didn't he get in contact with the representation of Boots, which is Cameron Duncan, instead of Bozy? Now, I'm not asking you to answer that question. That question is rhetorical because everybody knows I'm a boxing manager. Everyone knows that I speak on protocol of this business. Everybody knows I talk about being ethical in this business. And everybody also knows that there's a way that fighters can fight when it's approved. It has to go through representation, which is why one of the main things that I always say that I started my YouTube channel on is good representation in this business is priceless.
Okay, so I just wanted to interject with that.
Come on, talk to me. Come on, let's talk about it.
Cameron Duncan, just like Bud Crawford has 4 different trainers, and and Bomac is the lead trainer, you can have several attorneys, and then you have the lead attorney on a case. In that scenario, Bozy himself says he's also Boots' manager. So if both Cameron Duncan,
I've never, with all due respect,
I've heard Bozy say that several times.
Let me say this. Let's
Okay.
just hypothetically say that Bozy is the manager of Boots, right?
One of the managers.
Okay, one of the managers. What was Bozy's response when he was on the phone with Desmond and them at BLK Prime?
He said you have to call Showtime because we have a deal with Showtime.
You see that? In other words, is Bozy can say he's the manager, and guess what? Bozy might be the manager. But guess what the deal is? Only people that can push the buttons to get a fight happening is the people that represent Boots. I'm not saying that Bozy's not his manager. You see, what I'm basically getting at is the fact that Blue Blood didn't call Steven Espinosa and he didn't call Cameron Duncan. That's the point. It don't make no difference if Bozy's one of the managers or not, because if you're going to use that and you apply that to Crawford having many different trainers or managers, Bomac is the manager of Terrence Crawford. But guess what? Al Heyman ain't had no contact with no Bomac to get this deal done. He was on the phone directly with Terrence Crawford. You see my point?
At that point, if we're going to talk about that, both Crawford and Errol Spence, being that they both have a promotional company, if you go back to Roy Jones versus Bernard Hopkins, they put that fight together. For I don't know the exact details, but it's just looking at how it went down and not seeing PBC really part of that promotion. A person would assume, an intelligent person would assume that it was Terrence Crawford and Errol Spence that put that fight together.
Absolutely not. Let me explain something. Okay. Hey, man. Let me share something with you, man. I want to give the audience the real deal, like I always do. Two fighters ain't putting no fights together. Can they agree? Absolutely. Do they sign the contract? Absolutely. But the representation are the ones that are recognized by the sanctioning bodies and the athletic commissions to put fights together. I just want people to be clear. Because if we don't establish that as the foundation, then we'll be on the treadmill listening to fighters say, I offered you 10%, I offered you 25%, I offered you, when the real deal is the representation put these fights together behind the scenes. So my point is, nobody calling a trainer is going to basically expedite no process to get no fight done without the representation. So, and also, it's a violation of the contract. This is why I'm saying what I'm saying. So I'm not going to sit here and give Blue Blood credit, with all due respect, by saying, okay, because he called Bozy, he's trying to materialize the fight because the timeline wasn't accurate. And I'm not saying it wasn't accurate on Blue Blood's part. I'm talking about the timeline wasn't accurate to put a fight together when Boots already fought Karen Shabufa, right? I think that's his name, his last name.
Yeah, whatever that dude's name is.
Yeah, he fought the guy Karen in January. We saw him on the undercard of Tank Davis, so we all know that he fought the guy Karen in January. And then Crawford already fought David Ebenezer in December. Now the question becomes again, which is what I said in the published content that you commented on, if this was all the case, why didn't Blue Blood Sports TV advocate for Boots to fight Crawford way before David Ebenezer? Because the thing is, we all can agree, AC, with all due respect to David Ebenezer, we all know that David Ebenezer was scheduled to fight and defend the European title in another country in November the 19th to be exact. So if that was the case, then how come BLK Prime and Blue Blood didn't put it together for Boots to fight Crawford before he fought David Ebenezer, and before he fought Karen, because the thing is, it took months for that fight to materialize legally and ethically, as far as the business is concerned of boxing, for Terrence Crawford to fight David Evanesian, and basically for the sanctioning bodies involved in the other country and in Nebraska to be able to take him off of the card and then approve the fight. There's a process with that, and I don't want to go into the process.
Yeah, I don't. We don't need to go into the process.
Right. So, but my point is, it took months before November, because that's the month that David Evanesian was going to compete. You know what I mean? So it took months before November to get Crawford and David Evanesian to even agree to the terms to fight each other, let alone getting Bozy to be contacted by Blue Blood. So what it is the timing is still wrong, no matter how you slice it. I know you want to say
that's your perspective, but
no, that's the fact.
I'm saying this.
He called the guy in January. Blue Blood called Bozy in January.
He made his statement in January. We don't know when he actually made the call, because according to his own words, according to that man's own words, when he was saying,
words? Who?
I'm talking about Blue Bloods. According to Blue Blood's own words, he said the first fight when he was hired by BLK Prime, they asked him what's the fight to make. He said Jaron Boots Ennis versus Terrence Crawford. They instructed him to make that happen. So he said that was the first person he called. He said that was the only person he had called. So that would tell you, hindsight 2020, the cat being let out the bag, just for me using my brain and not trying to assume or put the cart before the horse, that means, when I look at the inference of that sentence, that means that the call and everything happened prior to David Evanesian. So therefore, when that deal fell apart, the second person they called was the third person in line, then the fourth person in line. By the time they got down to David Evanesian, he was willing to take the fight, regardless of his European fight, to say, I'd rather fight for a real alphabet title, get a much, much bigger payday, and then if I win, I can at least beat the guy who everyone's saying the number one pound for pound guy.
Here's the thing, bro. We got to keep it all the way 100, HD.
Yes.
Guy, hold on, HD. My guy, Y.S. Simmons in the background. I'm going to let him come on up, but I have to make this point before I let him come up. It's very, very important. It sounds like to me, because you're making an assumption that based on an inference, because Blue Blood said, so that automatically gave you the authority to assume that the fight was basically going to be materialized before December, and it wasn't going to be David Evanesian. It was only because Blue Blood made the phone call months before November, when that's not true. Now I'm gonna give you this right here to show you how I've been studying the real deal of how Blue Blood works. And the only reason why I had the opportunity to study the real deal on him is because of the shots that he was throwing at me. I didn't know who the guy was, right? So I had to go do my due diligence to find out why this guy throwing shots at the guy, myself, who only had 600-700 subscribers at that time. And I did my own homework and due diligence on him. And that's how I was able to roll the tape on him. The reason why I'm bringing it up as a foundation is because Blue Blood made a reference to BLK Prime, not in June or July or August or September. He made the reference with his association with BLK Prime in October. And I can roll the tape again. And so my thing is, he never even let nobody know he was dealing with, Blue Blood, didn't let anybody know publicly that he had a relationship with BLK Prime before October of 2022. So how can we then assume that he called Bozy before October when we know Bozy's on record in October on YSM stating that he petitioned the IBF? You see, this is all public record. And I also want to say this to you, AC, before I bring my guy YSM up here, because we got to deal with the real. I know, AC, I'm okay with Blue Blood being your guy and you supporting the
Well,
guy.
I used to support his channel. I don't support his channel like that anymore.
Why not?
It's just.
Why not? If you don't mind me asking.
Because a lot of what I've noticed over the years of supporting Blue Blood and supporting a lot of channels is I'm not really into the whole clickbait thing. Give me the facts, give me the information, and let's keep it pushing.
I got you.
You feel what I'm saying?
Well, you want to know why I don't follow the guy?
Why?
Because he's not, and this was the point that I was going to make before I bring YSM up here. Because Blue Blood is not a credible source. I know you're saying based on his words. I've heard you say that 3 times already. I counted. You said based on Blue Blood's words. Based on Blue Blood's words. AC, with all due respect to you, Blue Blood's words don't hold no weight, especially here on this channel. And I'm going to tell you why. Because Blue Blood's words have not been credible, and they have not been factual, and they have not been honest and actual. And the reason why I can say that more than anybody else on YouTube is because the guy lied on me and said I flagged his channel, and he know I didn't. So in other words is the guy been lying all the time, and he lied on me 3 times. So all I'm saying is not to rehash nothing, but as men, we got to keep it all the way 100 is if this guy, if Blue Blood say he called Bozy in August, I don't believe him. I believe Bozy, and I believe Blue Blood. When Blue Blood came out in January and said he letting the cat out the bag, he called Bozy. I believe Blue Blood. I believe he was telling the truth. You want to know why? Because Bozy substantiated his claim. If Bozy wouldn't have substantiated his claim, I wouldn't have believed him at all. But because Bozy came out and confirmed that the man called him in January, and guess what? Boots just came out last week.
But Bozy didn't say it when he had actually called him. Bozy never said that.
In the interview. No, listen.
It's a 3rd interview he dropped. But the first 2
was in the.
He never said that.
The man, okay, you gonna say Bozy didn't say that? No problem. Boots said it. Boots himself said it.